of those things are necessary, but here in this context, in this society, the one thing Paul is telling them to do is be submissive. Be submissive to your authorities. Why submission? Why does he say be submissive? Why start with something so unexpected as submission? Here's why in verse 8. In verse 8, the end of it tells us why. I think this might help us see why this is. In verse 8, he says, "This is a trustworthy statement, and concerning these things, I want you to speak confidently, so those who have believed in God may be careful to engage in good deeds." Why? Why mention these things? Because these things are good and profitable for men. It is profitable for men to see submissive Christians. It is profitable for society to see Christians that are submissive to their authorities, to the police, to those that are above them, to teachers that are above them, to employers that are above them, to parents that are above them. It is good for society. It is profitable for society to see that Christians are in submission to those that are in authority. And it's profitable for them because they're watching us. They're watching us and seeing how we respond. It gives no room to say that these Christians are out of order, when in fact we want to be in order, as chapter 1 verse 5 says. That we need to be a group of Christians that are in order, not out of order, not anarchy. That's what Satan wants to do. He wants to cause chaos, things to be out of order. But here the text says submission is part of God's design for the Christian, because submission under the authorities is part of God's display of His authority. Go to Romans chapter 13. This is probably the text when it comes to government and the Christian's role under government. Romans chapter 13, verses 1 and 2. Notice Paul says the very same thing. Let every person be in subjection to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, he who resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. See, human government has been established by God to display His authority. And so we as Christians are to submit to that authority, which includes what He has ordained, government. You may or may not agree with the government, but you are to be in submission under it. And that includes local government, state government, federal government. And it doesn't matter if we have an emperor, it doesn't matter if we have a king, it doesn't matter if we have a prime minister or a president. We're to be in subjection, to be in submission to that government. You see that example in Christ Himself, who subjected Himself to the government of Pilate, of Herod, under the Pharisees, and under Rome itself. Christ submitted to the government. And so that submission means then obedience as well. You can't say you submit but be disobedient. He says to be obedient to this government. Now, is there ever a time when we are to be disobedient to the government? Is there ever a time where we are to disobey the government? I believe the answer is yes, but I want to be careful in that yes. Because when it comes to disobeying the government, we want to be careful because we are disobeying under what God has ordained over us, which is human governments. So even if we were to disobey, there must be this slow appeal process. It can't just be a hard and fast no.